Hi, I'm Sue from Pelland Designs. Today I want to talk to you about my sewing room renovation. I've been changing up my sewing room a little bit to make it more functional, to make it a little bit prettier. And one of the parts of that sewing room renovation was to make a design wall. So I want to walk you through the process of making that design wall. And I'm going to show you all the materials that we need to make the design wall for your sewing room so you can make one of your own. I went to my local home center and I got a piece of super tough insulation that is rigid insulation, and I chose the 1-inch size that has an R value of 6.5. I thought the R value was important, not because I'm insulating anything, but because I wanted a very dense foam so that when I put my pins into it, it doesn't start to crumble. So for me, the 1-inch R value of 6.5 was the right size to use. In addition to your foam board, you're also going to need some duct tape, a whole bunch of pins, and I need to cut this insulation down to the right size. So I'm going to use my long quilting ruler, and I'm going to use one of these utility knives to cut the insulation. So we're going to go ahead and do that now, and then inside I'm going to show you how to cover the foam board. And what I'm using to cover that foam board is flannel. This one is made by Free Spirit Fabrics for K-Facet, and the reason why I like this flannel is because it has grid markings on it, so it's very easy to line up your pieces for quilting on those grid lines. The flannel allows you to stick your pieces right to the design wall. So this is a really nice product that I am going to carry on my website if you want to make your own design wall. Now you can see that I'm working in the garage, and this isn't really a messy process, but I just feel it's best to do this out in the garage because as you are cutting this foam insulation, you might get some powdery residue that falls on the floor. So the garage is the easiest place for me to work. Now my design wall needs to be 42 inches by 86 inches to fit in the space that I'm going to be mounting the design wall. So you'll want to measure your wall and see where you want your design wall to be mounted, and then you're going to make the appropriate measurement on your board. Now these boards come in 4 by 8 sheets. So I know that to make it 42 inches, I'm going to cut 6 inches off the side of this board. So let me do that now, and then I'll cut the length to 86 inches the same way. Okay, you might be able to see that I have Grace True Grips on the back of my tool. That prevents the tool from sliding as I'm cutting. Now whether I'm using this tool for rotary cutting or cutting with my X-Acto knife, it's important that it doesn't slide. Now the foam is very easy to cut with your X-Acto knife, but I do extend the knife out quite long so I can get through the full 1 inch of the board. So I'll run it through a couple of times to score it, getting deeper and deeper every time. And if I were doing this, if it weren't for you and the camera, I'd be doing this on the floor so that I could cut all the way through right to the floor of the garage. Here I'm probably going to hit that table below, but I'm not really worried about this table. So if I do hit it and I can feel that it's gone all the way through now, then I'm going to move the ruler down and continue on. Okay, so I brought the project into my dining room because I've got this nice big table and it's going to be easier to cover the board in here. So I've just measured out 80 inches. I actually need 86 inches for the board, and then I'm going to go out 4 more inches for the wraparound so I can tape it to the back of the board. Now the reason why I use the 42-inch width on the board is because this fabric comes 44 inches. So if I'm really careful, I only need 1 inch on each edge to wrap around the board. So by going 42 inches wide, I only have to use 1 length of fabric, and I don't have to put a seam in the fabric. So I do recommend, if you are making a design wall for your own sewing room, measure to see if a width from between 40 and 42 inches will work for you, because it'll save you a lot of money on the fabric. Now what I'm doing is I'm using 2 of them, and I'm going to put the 2 together on the wall. So it's really going to be twice as wide. Now the grid markings make it super easy to cut, because once you find your measurement, just cut straight apart on the grid marking. Now I'm going to have this fabric available on my website. It'll be sold in half-yard increments. So you would take your measurement, divide it by 18, and then round up. Say it comes out to 4.2, you would need 5 half-yard increments in order to cover your design wall. Okay, so now I'm ready to cover the board that I've cut down to the right size, and I've just laid the board down with the fabric side, the pretty side down, so we have the board against the back of the fabric. Now I've centered the fabric, so I'm on a corner where there's 2 inches hanging out in each direction, and that 2 inches is what we're going to wrap around the board. Also, because it's stretchy, you're going to be able to pull it from the other side, and when you pull it from the other side, I'll show you that corner, we'll be able to use that straight line to go right along the edge of the board, so that you know when you hang it, you have straight lines that are parallel with the board. Now I'm not putting my pins into the top of the board here. I find it easier to put them into the foam, and on that corner, just like a present, I would wrap straight in and then fold one side up and pin, fold the other side up this way and pin. So it kind of looks like a mitered corner here. The reason why I like to keep my T-pins on the side is because after we put all the T-pins in, we're going to go in and we're going to tape this down with duct tape. So keeping the pins in the side keeps it out of the way. So I can easily duct tape these edges to the back of the board. On this corner, you can see that I only have that 1 inch to go around. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch that fabric so that it makes it nice and taut on the front of the board, so I won't have any wrinkles. So again, I'm going right into this corner where there's a white marking right on the corner of my board. I'm going to wrap this one up, and then I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the other side, continuing my pins in each direction here to stretch that line. I'm going to stretch it until I see that white line, and then put my pin in. So stretch it up until you see the white line, and now put your pin in. I do this on all 4 corners, and then I'm going to continue to put 1 pin every 2 inches along the edge at every white line, and that will ensure everything is stretched with the same tension all the way across the board. And then I'll start taping after my pins are every 2 inches along all 4 edges. Now that I have the pins all the way along the outside edge, I'm just going to take a piece of duct tape, and I'm going to cut it up into small, like 1 inch segments. I'm cutting these at an angle, but that is not at all important. It's just the angle that I need to be at because the camera's in the way. So just cut them out into little squares. And I will place one of those little squares every place there's a pin. So now we have put the duct tape every place there's a pin. If you just give it a little rub here, it'll make sure that it sticks really well and keeps it in place. But these are the ones that I did first, and you can still see that they're really well stuck down because this duct tape is super, super sticky. So it's going to take me a second here to unroll this tape, and we're going to go halfway on the fabric and on the board. So we're just covering over all those little bits of duct tape. You can see them underneath when I kind of burnish it with my fingernail. Make sure that everything's stuck down really, really well. And that's all you need to do to make your flannel covered design wall. The last step in this process is to mount the hardware. The hardware that we're using is a closet door sliding unit, and it contains these brackets here, and there's a wheel here that fits into a track that mounts on your ceiling. And we've just screwed these brackets to the back of the foam core or the foam board, but I didn't want that foam board to fall apart with those screws going through it, so we've actually attached a piece of 1/4 inch by, it's probably 2 inch, 2.5 inch wide wood, and we've just applied that to the back of the foam board, the insulation board, with some wood glue, and you can see we've clamped it together with these clamps. And then we were able to screw through the bracket, and that goes through the wood and then into the foam. So the combination of the wood glue and the wood itself is holding on to those screws. I would not trust those screws going into the foam alone. So you can see that we have this wood, and it goes all the way across the top of the foam insulation board. So this is on the back side, and we've covered the front side with the flannel. And now we'll go downstairs and see how they are mounted to my ceiling in the sewing room. You can see in the back corner of my sewing room, there's kind of a messy closet space. And that's the space I'm looking to cover up. And just above that, you can see that we've mounted a track on the ceiling. Now that track goes all the way across until I can't go any further because of that dip in the ceiling. And you can see that there's another closet behind here. Now I've covered that with curtains. I do have an air conditioning unit in that closet and a small window in my basement. So I want access to that area, but this is the only area that I have a full wall, floor to ceiling, where I could use that foam board and make a design wall that goes all the way from floor to ceiling. That's important so you can step back from your work and look at it from a distance. So as I get these doors installed in that track, and that's just using those mounting brackets that we put on, we'll show you how those two doors will hang, and they will slide all the way over together to cover over that closet area. And if I'm working on a bigger project, I can slide them open. So one of those panels will cover over this section of the curtain and allow me double the space to work with my design wall. I'm finishing up my sewing room renovation, and I've just mounted my design walls, and you can see how nicely they slide across so that I can open the design wall to get twice the width so I can design larger quilts. The quilt that I'm designing right now is a block of the month, and I'm using my tools in order to cut the applique shapes. So this is a really fun project that I'm working on. Now as I work on each block, I can add the pieces for that block that are already fused and just put those up there to see what they're going to look like. Now if I decide that I'm happy with the placement of my applique pieces, I can use the design wall itself in order to tack these pieces in place, so then I can move this whole piece down to my ironing board and give it a good hot press. So in order to tack the Misty Fuse without giving it a good hot press, we're just going to touch the applique shape with the very tip of the iron, and that will adhere it just in a couple of spots. So if I decide I don't like this color leaf right here, I can remove that leaf, and I haven't ruined the applique piece, and I haven't ruined my background fabric. If I do decide I want to keep that in place, once again, just tack it with the tip of your iron. So by having the insulation board on the design wall, I can use that as almost as an ironing board. But it's much easier to iron this entire piece on the ironing board. So I'll tack everything in place and then bring it down and move that to my ironing board to finish off the pressing. So that is the design wall that I have made. I hope you'll make one of your own and enjoy using that in your sewing room. Thank you for watching, and visit me, SuePellandDesigns.com, to obtain the fabric for this project.